Once again, here is a mock-up from a previous plenum that I made on another planer. And the transition or the plenum that I'm making for the B244 is almost identical, it's just bigger. It will have an 8-inch diameter dust port, and then where it attaches to the planer is 1 11/16 by 31 inches wide. My camera is having a lot of trouble focusing on that poster board, but I think you'll still get the general idea. Here is a front and back view of what the plenum will look like. It is 15 inches high, and again, this full-size drawing is 31 inches wide, and it shows the 8-inch diameter dust port at the top here. And then here's a side view. Okay, so the first task in making the transition is to make a flat pattern for each half of the plenum. So each half of the plenum will be welded together here. We're going to use this view to calculate and lay out the triangles needed to make the flat pattern. Each of these fold lines is the hypotenuse of a triangle. And the vertical leg of the triangle is always going to be the same. It'll be 15 inches. And then the base of the triangle will be all of these lines here in this flat pattern view. So 1A, 2A, 3A, etc. Those will be the bottom leg of a hypotenuse triangle. I'd like to point out that there are all kinds of resources online for how to lay out flat patterns for round to rectangular transitions. So you can do a search on flat pattern transition from round to square, or you can do a search on triangulation for creating flat patterns, and there's all kinds of resources there. So here's the height of the dust collection plenum. It's going to be 15 inches, so that part of the triangle will be constant. But what changes is the distance of this flattened pattern for each of these points here. So I'm just going to use a compass to get the distance of each of those points, and I'm going to transfer that to the base of this triangle. That first point I laid out was A7, so this is going to be A, it will also be B, and then each of these points that I lay out down here will be these numbered locations on the round part of the transition. So that is A7, if I can write upside down. And then the next one is going to be A6. So this point is actually going to be A6 and B8. So A6 and B8. This is probably too small for you to see, and then I'll lay out the rest of these points and then come back when I'm done. And then here's the final one here, from 1 to A, and then laying that out here. So all these distances here represent the length of the folds. They're the length of the hypotenuse of the triangle it will need to lay out. And it's not really necessary to draw them in, but I'm going to go ahead and do that just for illustration. So in laying out the flat pattern, we're going to use this trammel bar to establish each of these lengths. And then we'll use a small compass for each of these lengths right here. And this will be a constant. This dimension will not change. We're going to first lay out the A7, B7 point, and then as we proceed, we're going to lay out the rest of the points, and it will end up being a little curve like this as it is made. So we'll establish this A7, B7 length first. I don't know if this shows up very well on camera, but I've established my base of the dust chute, and so this is the width from this point to this point. And I'm going to use the trammel that I've set on that A7, B7 length to create a little X right where they cross. And again, I don't know if that shows up very well. So again, looking at the front and back view, that is this point right here. And then for laying out the next points, we're going to take this that we've got fixed for each arc of the curve. We'll just draw a little arc like that. The A6, B8 lengths will be used to lay out a point there. So there's the A6, B8 length. And make a little arc. Should intersect this small arc that we made with the small compass earlier. And then the same on this side. And then we'll adjust the triangle for the A5, B9 set of points right there. And then use the triangle that we've just established the length for A5, B9. And I'll do the rest of it offline and we'll come back and I'll have it all laid out. So I've got all the points laid out, A1 through 7 and then B7 through 13. And you might be able to imagine how those would be able to wrap around into the round part of the duct. I'll go ahead and establish the first pair of fold lines on A7 and B7. And then I'll lay out the rest and come back. And there is the mostly completed flat pattern. Well, having said that about the flat pattern being finished, there is one additional layout that we have to do, and that is this point from C to 1, so C1. That little area represents this on the mock-up, so this little flat flange here, and then it tapers up to nothing at the round end of the transition. So C1, I've got that set already, and then lay it out on the base of my triangle, and it's nearly the same as A1 and B13. I want my pencil lead. Okay, I've got my triangle set to that new dimension, which is C1. I don't have it labeled on here, but this is a dimension from C to point 1. And then the other dimension for that layout involves this distance here. So this will be the distance to point C, right there. I'll go ahead and label it C. And then the triangle is used from point 1 and point 13 over on the other side. Right there is a little flange. Now in reality, I'm going to leave this flange a little bit long so that when everything's done, I've got some material that I can trim off. Okay, this probably does not show up on the screen, but I laid out the distance for 13D, and so that's here. The flat pattern is pretty much complete. These hashed areas just represent some extra material that I've added to assist when it's going through the handbrake operation. So the next thing I'll do is I'll take this flat pattern and lay it down on my sheet metal, and I'll prick punch all these points and then cut it out. And after that, we'll take it over to the bar folder, or excuse me, the handbrake, and bend it to shape. For points A and B, I just used a file to transfer that point to the metal. And then all the other points, I'll use a prick punch. Other than the perimeter, it's not really necessary to scribe in all these lines. I'll go ahead and do so just for illustration purposes. I don't know how well this shows up on camera, but I've got all the scribe lines in place now. And then this area over here is the extra material that will cut off once everything's bent. So there's one completed flat pattern. Camera's having trouble focusing on that reflective surface. I'll make another one and we'll go over and put them on the handbrake.